Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. It is time for Lincoln Riley, this USC program, to really turn it up, get aggressive in the transfer portal over the next couple of weeks. Now, about a week ago, we had this conversation of positions we would like to see USC go out and get. Now we get to update that conversation with some players that are currently entering their names into the transfer portal. And we're going to update this conversation as the weeks and days go on, as more players enter the transfer portal. But I want to start with some kind of early names that I think are really interesting for a lot of USC fans to monitor. Now, before we get into it, as always, I think most importantly, one, to the USC fans, I can't thank y'all enough for rocking with it. It's going to be a fun next couple of weeks, and the amount of support y'all show as we talk the recruiting trail, as we talk the transfer portal, it truly means the world. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, throw some names, throw some position groups down in the comment section that you would like to see USC go out and get. And those names and position groups you guys throw in the comment section, that's largely what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days. So appreciate you guys rocking with it. Without further ado, I want to start kind of eating your vegetables, so to speak. There are a lot of exciting names in the wide receiver room, in the back end of defenses that have emerged in the portal. I want to start with the offensive line. The real talking point for me on the offensive line is, what kind of offensive lineman do you want to see USC go out and get? Now, a prerequisite to this conversation is, I think, you have a stud in Elijah Page heading into 2025. The back half of 20, there were some growing pains. There's no secret about that to start 2024 for Elijah Page. The back half of 2024, this kid really turned the corner. And I think you have your stalwart left tackle heading into 2025. But then you look at the rest of the offensive line, and I think you want some competition at the tackle position, specifically on the right side. I'm really high on Tobias Raymond. I think he very well could be the guy for USC going into 2025, but you want to get some proven commodities in some competition. And then you look at the inside of the offensive line, kind of a similar conversation, losing guys like Jonah and Emmanuel Pregnon. Give me the proven commodities on the offensive line. And you're going to largely see two different kind of offensive line transfer portal prospects, if you will. You're going to see one, the highly sought after high school kids that haven't really played much football, are looking for a new home. And then you're going to see some guys that, you never heard of coming out of high school, went to the G5 level, have played multiple seasons at a high level, now want to make the jump to the Power 4 level. Those, to me, are the offensive linemen I think USC should be going out and getting. One, because I think the track record of those guys over the last couple of years of the transfer portal has been really good. A lot of the guys that have played well at the G5 for multiple seasons, then jump up to the Power 4 level, they've had a lot of success. That is where I think USC should be trying to kind of make their money on in the transfer portal on the offensive line. The first one I want to talk about, Xavier Gray from Liberty, 6'8", 340. Started the last 2 years at right tackle for Liberty. He's an animal in the run game, one of the highest graded offensive tackles in the run blocking department, according to PFF. I turned on a little bit of Liberty film because we're going to talk about another offensive lineman. The footwork probably can be cleaned up in pass protection, but when you're talking about someone who's 6'8", 340, that's kind of the expectation. This kid has played a lot of football, over 2,200 snaps during his career. That's kind of the type of guy I want to bring in, because it gives you a floor. Like, he's going to come in and at least be a solid right tackle for USC. And if Tobias Raymond ends up coming in and beating him out, good on Tobias Raymond. You probably got a really good right tackle there. But I want to stick with these guys that just provide high floors for USC on the offensive line. Xavier Gray, one of those guys. And we've kind of seen Lincoln Riley lean into the run game a little bit more. Xavier Gray can get it done in the run blocking department. Very similar conversation. Jordan White, also from Liberty, another guy that's played over 2,000 snaps during his career, started at West Virginia, goes to Liberty. What I love about Jordan White, 2023, started every single game at center, and then in 2024, started every single game at left guard. And so he gives you that position versatility. You can bring him in. He can slot in as a center. He can slot in as a guard. He has 6'2", 300 pounds, a really stout frame, strong in the run blocking department as well. Liberty ran the football a lot this year. These are two guys that it's hard to see them not being solid up front on the offensive line. Now, I get this is the not the most exciting conversation to have. This is where I think USC should be making their money on the offensive line. These guys that are not going to be asking for $500,000 in the transfer portal, but guys that have played a lot of football and have the chance to translate to the Power Four level at a high. They have a good chance at translating to the Power Four level, and you feel like you're getting quality play on the offensive line and really raising the floor of what this USC offensive line can be in the 2025 year, because you have some guys that give you that high ceiling, most notably Elijah Page. We want to make sure we got a solid starting five. And the offensive line's a weird position where you're only as strong as your weakest position. If you have a massive problem at one position on the offensive line, your offensive line as a whole is probably going to struggle. So you got to make sure you're solid all five starting spots. Those are the two offensive linemen that have piqued my interest. Let's get into the quarterback conversation for just a sec, right? Miller Moss entering the transfer portal. That was largely expected from a lot of USC fans. As it's slated right now, it's Jaden and then five-star quarterback Hassan Longstreet. If I'm Lincoln Riley, I want to add one more quarterback to that room. And I particularly want to add a guy that has shown they can be a difference maker at the Power Four level. I think we've seen some really good things out of Jaden. I think there's a very good chance Jaden's the starting quarterback in 2025 with some further development. If he puts all of those physical traits together, I think you could get a really, really dynamic quarterback in the 2025 year, but he hasn't necessarily proven it. He probably leaves a little bit more to be desired, specifically in the decision-making category. Right now, Miller Moss, to me, is the best quarterback in the transfer portal. So as of right now, and we're recording this Monday afternoon, there's not a quarterback that I look at and say, yep, that's the guy that immediately comes in and competes for the quarterback one spot. So Noah Fafita would probably be the name that I'm looking for. If I'm USC one, I think he kind of fits the success that Lincoln Riley's had with quarterbacks. Game changer, creative outside the pocket, can throw off platform. Noah Fafita checks a lot of boxes, and if you surround him with all these weapons that USC has, I think Noah Fafita could be that guy that USC really identifies and wants out of the transfer portal. We'll see if he enters in. Now, the other conversation, and I routinely listen to Trojan Blade, and I think he does a phenomenal job talking about this USC team. The conversation about a true wide receiver one has come up. Respectfully, I don't know if I totally agree, because I look at that wide receiver position and say, you have guys like Jacoby Lane or Deuce or Mekhi Lemon, potentially Zachariah Branch. We'll see what the future is for him. I look at USC's wide receiver room and say, yes, I understand the critique that there was no real true wide receiver one on this USC offense in 2024. I look at all these kids going into year three and say, one or two of them, probably takes that step to become that wide receiver one. So I don't know if you're shelling out a ton of money for a wide receiver one, because I really do like what you have in the wide receiver room. Although it's lacked a little bit of consistency, I'll certainly recognize that. Wide receiver who could step on campus for USC and become that wide receiver one. Right now, there's one guy. It's Casey Concepcion from NC State. Complete difference maker. And he would fit in this Lincoln Riley offense because there's so many different ways you can get this kid involved. As a true freshman, he was the leading pass catcher for NC State. He was also the leading rusher. He was largely the only reason NC State was scoring any points in 2023 as a true freshman. Now, the production and numbers dipped a little bit in 2024, largely because you had an injury at the quarterback spot. You had to go to a true freshman quarterback. This kid can play. He can play at a very high level. And so if Lincoln Riley and the staff decide they want a real wide receiver one, right now, Casey Concepcion, to me, would be the guy. There's some other guys that intrigue me, right? Former five-star wide receiver Micah Hudson, really intriguing from Texas Tech. Jonte Cook at Texas. Some intriguing names, no doubt about it. But if you want a proven commodity at wide receiver one, it is Casey Concepcion. Now, moving over to the defensive side of the football, I still think you're looking for depth. Now, we'll start with this name just because this is really what I would like to see USC go on and do. 12 months ago, we were talking about depth on the defensive line. It's just we need bodies, capable bodies to play along the line of scrimmage. Going into 2024 or 2025, that is, I think you have some solid depth, right? Obviously, you ideally land a guy like Jakeem Stewart who can come in right away and help you. G-Day and Carlin Jones kind of taking that step. We saw Cam Fountain really emerge at that edge spot late in 2024. I look at the depth and say I feel pretty good about the depth. Now I'm looking for a game record. I mean, I think the biggest problem for USC in 2024 is just not creating enough negative plays. Jaheim Otis would be that guy. Now he is very similar to Bear Alexander, where the highs for Jaheim Otis are really really damn high, like all American caliber high. There's some lows too, and there's some off the field stuff that you got to make sure is ironed out. If that stuff checks out to this USC staff, he's probably the guy right now that I think would be a difference maker on the inside of the defensive line for USC. There's just not too many names right now that have popped. We'll kind of update this conversation as more names come into the portal. But I look at Jaheim Otis. If you're looking for that game record, that I think the best example is look at what Derek Harmon is doing. As my lights flickering, look at what Derek Harmon's doing for the Oregon Ducks. They went out and shelled out some real money for a guy like Derek Harmon, and he has taken that, in my opinion, taken that Oregon defense to the next level. Jaheim Otis, his best football would do that for USC. Got to create more negative plays. Got to affect the quarterback more with your front four. Dan Lynn's relying on so many blitz packages to manufacture pressure on quarterbacks. Now, a depth piece that I think would be interesting, kind of some Nate Clifton vibes, if you will. Red Hibbler, a guy that plays the edge, kind of a stronger, stouter edge rusher that I think could play the 3-tech. Another one of those just gritty defensive linemen that NC State produces. Excuse me. I don't think he'll be a game wrecker. Kind of like how we talked about Gavin Mayer. Gavin Mayer gave us some really, really good stuff for USC, and he's just physically wasn't ever going to be a game wrecker in the Big Ten, but gave you some really, really good work. I think Red Hibbler would be that guy too. And like ideally, you want to add a guy like Gavin Mayer, Red Hibbler, Nate Clifton as kind of rotational pieces. I think USC had to rely on those guys to do a little bit more than maybe they could do. Last guy I want to talk about, and this is a diamond in the rough, I think. Coach Entz knows him. Cole Wisniewski, All-American in 2023 for North Dakota State, FCS All-American. That is 6'4", 218. I mean, the numbers, I'll be the first one to admit, if he does come to USC, there's a little bit more traction. I'll dive into a little bit more of the film. Tracking the PFF numbers. I mean, missed all of 2024 with an injury. Has played over 1,400 snaps in his career. 92 tackles and 8 interceptions in 2023. Led the team in tackles and only missed 11% of his tackles. So he's a guy that creates turnovers, rangy, 6'4", so he's long, rangy. He's also really physical when he's coming downhill and supporting the run. Maybe just like a more athletic version of Achille Arnold, a guy that can come into the box, support the run, but also can be a ball hawk in the back end. Coach Entz would know. I think Lincoln Riley comes to Coach Entz to say, hey, do you think this kid can play at the Power 4 level? Coach Entz will give you the answer. If he can play, I think USC should go after, because I think this kid could be a difference maker in the back end. And more importantly, you look at, he's really versatile, plays all over the football field, 200 snaps in the box, 400 as a free safety, plays a little nickel as well. So he can do that versatility that Dan Lynn needs. But more importantly, this kid seems to me to be a guy that kind of fosters the identity that USC wants to have on defense. He's just a hard-nosed safety that can go make plays. Those are the guys I got right now. Again, we'll continue to update the list as it grows. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. To the USC fans, y'all know I appreciate you guys. The support means the world. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.